Our next seminar is running by Mrs. Fanshan. And as we introduced about her, she's teaching our Year 11 English, and she got experience more than 30 years of HSC and VCE teaching. And at the same time, she's quite a famous author for young adults as well. Then I'm going to invite Mrs. Fanshan here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Olivia. It's so nice to be part of this special day. I'm thinking about what Mr. Wang said about an experienced teacher of maths needing to have at least 10 years experience. Well, this should make me utterly brilliant because I've been teaching since the age of the dinosaurs. Anyway, when I was invited to talk today, my mind went immediately to how important it is to plan when you're writing an analytical essay, when you're writing anything for VCE English, how important it is to plan. Everyone says plan, but what does that mean? Some teachers are not quite as clear about it as other teachers. And some teachers just say, oh, underline a few words and then brainstorm. I feel if you do that, you are jumping a whole lot of processes that help you actually understand the question better, know what you think, and gather your ideas. Now, I'm going to say this. When you see my PowerPoint, it looks like it's going to take an hour to plan an essay, to analyze a question. But think about this. When you walk into VCE English, the VCE English exam, you must plan. It's disastrous not to plan. And someone who's had plenty of practice with planning their essays and then writing them will confidently finish a plan in 5 to 10 minutes. So these processes that I'm about to show you should be able to be done eventually by the time you're getting towards the end of year 12, very, very quickly. So don't be overwhelmed by what I'm about to show you. So I'm going to show you my PowerPoint. And where are we? Here we are. Right. So go back to the beginning. And so can everyone see this?
Yes, can do.
Can.
Yes.
And what I've done is I've been very right back to the end. So I'll go to the beginning now. Okay. To do well in essay writing is extremely important that you know what the question is saying and that you can plan knowing what the essay is saying. I've read wonderful essays written by students who write well, but they've been sloppy about analysing the question. So it doesn't matter how beautifully a student writes. If they're off the track, they will not get good marks, or they might even fail, whereas an average sort of student might do better because they've analysed the question and they're staying on track of the question. So this is the mistake that I was telling you about, just to underline a few words and say, oh yeah, I get it, I understand, and then start brainstorming. You must understand the question, and here are steps. Now, some teachers might explain the art of analysing and planning in a different way, but as long as it covers this sort of area that I'm talking about today, it's important. So the first thing is you do underline the keywords and you give each of the important words 1 or 2 synonyms. Now, a synonym is a word that is the same, means the same as the word that you're looking at. Is there anybody who needs this translated? Olivia? Is there, or Eve? Is there anybody who would like what I'm saying translated? Maybe not.
Oh, I can. Sorry, I can.
Okay, so the first step is underline keywords in the question and use your dictionary, and you're allowed to take a dictionary into the VCE exam, English exam, and find a couple of synonyms for each of the main words. So, Olivia?
Yes, sure. Mrs. Fensham 的意思是，那么首先呢，我们要做的第一步就是要分析每一个写作的 topic，那么就说分析每一个写作的这叫什么 topic 怎么说？然后呢，一定要画上他们的关键词，用线画好了。然后因为 VCE 的考试当中是可以被允许带这个字典的，所以同时你可以查一下这个字典，就是关于这个关键词它有哪些相近同义词。Thank you, Fen.
Thank you, Olivia. Now, doing this has two advantages. One, it explains what that word is. If you're not clear, you've got a synonym and you think, this is what it means. But the other thing it does is it gives you a rich vocabulary to write with, because one of the skills of essay writing is to keep varying your vocabulary and not repeat the same word. So this technique, finding a couple of synonyms, does two jobs: helps you understand, helps you express yourself better. Okay, the next thing you need to do for yourself is to write that question into your own clear, simple words, and then double check that what you've written does match what the question says.
好的，第二点特别重要的就是说，我们一定要搞清楚问题的本身是什么。那么可以建议同学们是将这个问题呢，用很简短扼要的词汇或者是话把它写出来，然后一定要再回头再看一下说，那么我写的这个是不是和这个问题，是不是回答这个问题，是不是准确 ？Thank you, Libby.
Thank you. Okay, so you've clarified the question, and something strange has happened with my PowerPoint. So I'm just going to go back, escape out of it. I'll stop sharing for a minute. Olivia, something's happened.
Not a problem.
I'm not sure what's going on here. Yeah.
Maybe stuck a little bit. But at the same time, I can translate a little bit about why we need to find a simple.
It's working again. Thank you, Olivia.
Okay, great.
So the next thing is, in the question, it might say, do you agree, discuss, or it might begin the question with how. And each one of those directions expects something different. So you also have to analyze and think about what you're being asked. If it's, I won't go into too much detail now, but that is another aspect of it. Here is the next stage that really helps clarify what a person thinks. You've simplified your question. Now, answer it in just 2 to 3 sentences. Can you do that, please, Olivia? Can you translate that?
Yes, can do. But Libby, do you want to share your screen at the same time?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I can hear clearly. I hope the other.
Okay. I'll go down to screen share.
Yes.
Can you join from your computer?
Something's happened with the screen share.
No worries. I think I may translate because we can hear you very clearly.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm not sure why it's doing that. Would you like me to, wait a second?
Yes, sure. I can at the same time translate the third point is.
Thank you.
就是第3点很重要的话，就是要简化我们的问题。对，我们可能先简短扼要的回答问题，那么大概用2到3句话来回答。那其实就是我们要把重点的你的点先列出来，是这个意思。Yes, Libby, your turn. I can see clearly now. Perfect.
So quite often students, particularly in an exam situation, might panic and think, well, what do I think of this? And if you just answer that question in 2 or 3 sentences, it gives you more confidence, it clarifies your mind, and sometimes if what you've written is really extremely useful, it can open the introduction. So I'll move on to that. Okay, here's the next point. So what I'm going to do for a moment is I'm going to share the cover of the book that we are studying currently in Year 11 English at Topscope. And if I can do that, I'll just go out of here for a minute. And I'll just move this. Doesn't seem to want to move.
Or maybe stop sharing.
Okay, I'll stop sharing. Okay, and I'll do it again.
Yeah.
And no, that's not doing it. So what I was going to do was show you the cover of the collection of short stories by an Australian writer called Tim Winton. And Year 11 students at Topscope have read and studied 2 of those stories. They're similar in some ways because both the protagonists, the main characters, live in rather out of the way towns, not close to cities. They are both struggling to find independence. Both of them have very difficult parents. One girl, her father has abandoned the family, and her mother is suffering from psychiatric illness. She's a very good swimmer, and this girl swims to get rid of her worries and concerns. It's one time where she feels strong and in control of life. The story ends ambiguously because she goes for a swim and you're not sure whether she survives or not. And it's really asking, does she manage to overcome the negative influences of her mother or not? In the other story, there's much hope. There's a girl who's made to leave school early and work in her parents' news agency. And one day a stranger comes in and he's he's not Aboriginal, he's not an Anglo-Australian, he's obviously come from some country, perhaps Pakistan or somewhere like that. And he goes to the back of the news agency and starts reading a book called Distant Lands. And the girl who has to work in the news agency watches him every time that he comes in. And at the end of the story, this man hands her money and a little note for her to catch the bus and escape out of the restricted, crushing life that she leads, because she has no friends, she has no life. So it's a story about being rescued from a difficult life with parents who don't care. So what I've done here, I've just written the essay question for this. In these stories, Winton reveals the damaging effect our childhood can have on us. Do you agree? Okay, so this is what you do next. This is what you do next. Okay, you underline the important words: reveals, damaging, effect, childhood, and do you agree? So I'll show you what happens next. Here I've looked up synonyms for these words: reveals, demonstrates, exposes; damaging, harmful, injurious; effect, outcome, consequence; upbringing, raising, rearing. Do you agree? This type of question allows you to form an opinion, although you must discuss the truth that's in the original question or statement, but you can say yes, but. So with this essay, I would be going, yes, these 2 stories do explore these painful childhoods where these 2 key characters, these protagonists, are trying to escape. a fairly uncaring upbringing. But in one of the stories, the girl has hope. She has someone who seems to understand her, even though that stranger has never spoken to her. Okay, looking at the next one. So I've clarified or rephrased the question. The harmful impact of our upbringing is exposed by Tim Winton in his 2 short stories. Do you think this is true? And now to this. I've written an idea of a response. Childhood trauma inflicted by poor parenting and its destructive effects are key themes in Tim Winton's 2 short stories from his anthology Minimum of 2. The water was dark and went forever down in distant lands. The teenage protagonists are clearly scarred by their respective parents. However, there are varying moments of insight and hope experienced by both female protagonists, especially in distant lands. So there I am, writing what I think about the question. Okay, you now understand the question, you know what you think about the question, and this is when you do a brainstorm. So what I'm trying to say is you don't go, underline, underline, yeah, I know what this is about, brainstorm. You go through that process that I've shown you. By the end of year 12, you can do it in 5 minutes. So what is a brainstorm? Sometimes it's a brain trickle, I tell kids, because sometimes you don't have lots and lots of ideas, but you've got to have at least 3 good ones. You jot your ideas down in any order and as many as possible. Then you reorder your ideas and you number them as in importance, number 1, 2, 3. And then you write 3 topic sentences for the very best 3 ideas. Topic sentences are sentences that will be your introductory sentence for each paragraph of the body of the essay after you've written your introduction. And then you scribble down plenty of evidence and plenty of short quotations. And I was listening with great interest this morning to Mrs. Eunice because she's talking about how important it is to write fat, meaty paragraphs. So 1 bit of evidence and 1 quotation is not enough. And you do this in the brainstorming part of your planning. So I'm not sure how long I've been going for, but now you know what you wish to say. You're ready to begin writing with confidence and reach for the sky with top scope coaching. Okay, so how many, are there any questions about the planning process?
Thank you very much.
Is that enough, Olivia?
Yes, I think it's quite, very clear for me to understand. It seems Mrs. Lisa just introduced about how to analyze, how to compare 2 different texts. But you just give us just example perfectly to introduce both of the texts and analyze in detail. I'm not very clear about how I'm going to reflect, how I'm going to analyze and put into writing.
Okay, thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, no worries. Do anyone have any questions want to ask Mrs. Fenshan about our year 11 English? It reflects about, when I was doing my PhD thesis, it's just like about literature review. So we have to read lots of articles, then analyze, they do have similar topics. But at the same time that we do have our own opinion, that we have to use the evidence to back up and analyze. It's quite useful.
Okay.
I can see one of chat. Do you recommend any books to help improve writing?
Do you know that the best way to improve writing is to read? When we're reading a novel, I'm talking about English, when we're reading about a novel, we are absorbing like a sponge the style of that writer. We're absorbing good punctuation, rich vocabulary, ways of expressing ourselves that we haven't met before. We're also meeting lots of new ideas and learning about other people, their lives, other countries, and history, because so many novels go back and forth in time. And I'm not making an excuse here. It is much better to be a good reader than to pick up a textbook on how to write.
Thank you. I believe Mrs. Fanshan just, explained in detail. Another question is, I'm finding it difficult to understand language in Frankston. Do you have any tips?
Finding it difficult to understand language. Sorry, I missed that last word.
In Frankenstein.
Yeah, in Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, okay. So Frankenstein, it's a 19th century novel written in the 1800s. You just have to have your dictionary next to you and look those words up. And yes, perhaps if some students are really struggling with the text, if you can find a really good film on that text, watch the film so that you get an idea of the plot. Then when you start reading, it's more understandable. But there's one problem with that. Films often change what's happening actually in the novel. So never depend on a film to do your studying. Never do that. And it's so important when you're writing to be writing about style, the writing style of the novelist or short story writer or poet, as much as you're writing about other things. So you're going to miss that if you just rely on films. But just keep that dictionary next to you, use a pencil and write all over your Frankenstein text.
Thank you very much. And we do have so many questions coming up. That's great. Are there any novels that you could recommend for year 11 students?
For a year 11 student. There are so many novels. Okay. I love Charles Dickens. So anything of Charles Dickens, the English writer from the 1800s. Now, if you want to look at poetic language, wonderful figures of speech, and characters that you never forget years after you've read the novel, one of the Dickens novels. And if you want a quick one, A Christmas Carol, which is a really short little novel, I'd recommend that. And it really, you'll see that he's a wordsmith. When I say a wordsmith, he's a master user of words and a storyteller. So he tells really good stories.
Thank you. That's very, good recommendation or great expectation to recommend.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Love it.
Yeah.
There's students ask, I think, do you recommend any Shakespeare's plays?
Plays? Oh,
yeah.
Heavens, yes. Let me think. Of course, there's Hamlet, and you've probably done Macbeth and Romeo and Juliet in earlier years. But any of his tragedies, I love any of his tragedies are,
Tragedies better than comedy.
Yes. Yeah. King Lear, I think, is my favorite.
Oh, great.
And it's really heart-wrenching.
It's a book fair, isn't it? We're discussing about lots of books. That's great. Does e-dictionary allowed in the VCE exam? I don't think so.
Yes.
Electronic dictionary.
Oh, no, electronic, no. Just a good old-fashioned dictionary. Yeah.
Old-fashioned is always the best.
Okay, any other questions?
Would you recommend Julius Caesar?
At year 11? I think some very advanced students would find it really interesting. Really, really interesting. What does it say about me as a female? I love the tragedies.
Very strong character, very obvious character.
Right.
strong personality.
Okay, thank you, Olivia.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Happy reading to the young ones. Yeah, thank you.
Yes.